Okay, here I am again. Why? I'll probably be on a lot over the next, it looks like at least the next week or two, because it's so damn hot out that you're either working, doing something in the studio, and you're avoiding being outside in the disgust. I took a walk yesterday to the post office, and the smells of New York when it's super hot and not raining, that'll keep you indoors making YouTube videos and working on tracks and mixes. So that's why I'm back right now. I think what'll be cool is once in a while I'll just go over some of the comments. I read the comments. I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal to like scroll through them every once in a while. And I mean, that's the feedback. It's fun stuff. As long as they're not, there's always going to be some trolls and some crazy people out there, but whatever. There's some good comments. I had some thoughts on some stuff. I was watching this one guy's video. It had nothing to do with music the other day. It was more about design, which, it's the arts, it's creativity and things like that. And he went on a bit of a rant about how to get better at what you're doing by copying. And I agreed with a lot of this stuff, basically most of it. He was, some of his points were borrow the sensibility of what you're striving for. That'll help you develop taste, and maybe that'll help you develop and understand what quality looks like or sounds like. So in this case, sounds like. Did a lot of copying early in everyone that I knew, say from an engineering tip, mixing tip, or production tip, we all start off sort of like copying, like listening to something and saying like, I want my thing to sound more like this, or have some elements of that. His point was, and I agree with it, is that you can push yourself to learn to copy and learn from that. And then you have to make the choice at a certain moment to forget everything you learned from copying. It's a tricky spot. It's a slippery slope and some people never recover from it. They just can't find their own voice. In the title, which some could look at as clickbait, it's not clickbait. It was a way of me emphasizing that if we're talking about 90s beats, or even any other producer that I've worked with, and even friends of mine, the mixer friends of mine, no one ever walks into a room or walked into a recording studio and said, I'm going to play you my beats. They're just like J Dilla, or they're just like Kanye, or they're just like Prestige. Prestige never walked into a room and said, I can't wait to play all these beats I have that sound just like Easy Mo B. Everybody was pushing their flavor, selling their flavor. So there's something to that, in that you're selling something to the client or to the artist that's gonna maybe rap on your thing or write to your beat. You're selling to them, this is the track you didn't know you needed. This is the production you didn't know you needed, and this is the mix you didn't know you needed. But there are limitations to that, because you have to be realistic. You have to you're working with, if you're working with a client or if you're working with another artist, you have to accommodate them in a lot of ways. You have to make that move of like, here's I'm trying to flip through my notes here. You can't be unrealistic. You got to know the audience. You can be focused and I guess maybe driven to push your vision, but you can't be unrealistic. There are certain things, and that's something to be careful about now. I'm giving you all these thoughts and tips going back to the 90s, even into the 2000s or whatever. I don't know if some of that stuff is relevant. Some of it's not relevant for today, no matter what you are. So like you can't walk into a situation with a new artist. Like I couldn't walk in and meet with a 19-year-old hip hop artist and say like, yeah, I'm going to make your stuff sound like, 1998. It's got to be 1998 meets 2025. You want to be looking forward. So in the comments section, I wrote down a couple. This guy says, I'm a bit confused / curious. It's pretty standard to not compress limiting the mix bus and leave that to mastering. So why are you mentioning that in particular about 90s hip hop production? Back in up until about probably 2004 or 5, you really didn't send, you never really listened to, my alarm thing. You never, what I'm saying is in going back to about 2005, you never really, there was no such thing as like crushing the mix bus. We had the L1 limiter plugin, and that was used predominantly for crushing the bus a bit and making a reference mix for somebody so that it would be loud, because gone were the days. People were like, hey, why is the mix you sending me home with half the volume of some CD that I'm listening to? And it was because of limiting and range, dynamic range being squashed. So what I'm saying in regards to that is, your beat is going to change. The sound of your track and the sound of your entire production is going to change with all of this limiting. So how could you combat that? In some ways, you could mix into, like a lot of us do now, we mix into the compression and into the limiting so that we know what it's going to sound like. It's not going to drastically change mastered. Because if you were to create a mix that you really loved and not listen to it with any of the modern mix bus approach, you will be shocked when that thing is mastered in what it sounds like. All of a sudden, your hi-hats will be louder, your balances will be a little different. It changes things, especially with the amount that goes on today. And there's, to the point of knowing your audience, there's no getting around the fact that that's going to be there. If you mastered a record now like it was 1997, it would be basically almost inaudible in comparison to other tracks that would be playing, say, on Spotify or the radio. Maybe not the radio, because the radio will boost things. But there will be a massive difference. Another comment. That's more about limiters on the beats. This guy asks, 90s mixes, would you agree there was less separation and less width, but more dynamics? I mean, there's something to that, because if there's less dynamics, it's going to somewhat feel like there's less separation between the depth of the instruments. Everything is going to be straight up against you, right in your face. The width thing is, a funny concept. I think the width thing, in a lot of ways, is more about the spatial stuff that we can use now, like spatializers and things that'll make things with psychoacoustic stuff sound wider. But there's no wider. It's right up against, they're right on either side of your head, the headphones or the speakers, there is no such thing as the pan being further than what it is. Can there be less center? I guess. I will tell you that I know that mastering, even back in the mid 90s in particular, they used a spatializer on the mastering, and it was not an expensive one. It's kind of like a industry secret, and it made your mixes feel wider, I guess, is the thing. So yeah, be careful when you're copying everything. Borrow, get a feel for it, get a sense of it. Let that bake into your subconscious so that you can use your intuition when you're making your tracks that are going to shake up the world.